the war between now and say 6-7 months ago was that the battlefield was much more dynamic, that we were seeing big shifts in who controlled what kind of territory. The world really hasn't seen a fight like this, hasn't seen a war like this for almost 100 years. It's very reminiscent of the Western Front in World War I, where you had trenches and progress was measured in hundreds of feet per day. Even today, where there's some quote unquote breakthroughs going on, we see the Ukrainians making advances of less than a mile per day. So it's a long, hard slog. It's going to be very bloody. It's going to take a lot of men, material, and a lot of people are going to get hurt along the way. But if things go badly for the Ukrainians, where they continue to lose men and machines at a rate that they can't replace, then we are looking at another few months where it may end up in stalemate. So it's really going to depend on how well the Russians defend, whether the Ukrainians can find a breakthrough, and whether the Ukrainians have the means and the will to continue a fight, even when they are on a sort of parity in a very defensive position with the Russians. As of now, it's not going to have any significant effect on the battlefield. The battlefield remains what it was, and that is where the Ukrainians are trying to break through multiple layers of Russian defense. So even though there's all this turmoil going on, there's questions about Putin and how he's able to hold on to power, what's going on the battlefield so far is not going to be affected. Theoretically, it's a better military than it was, say, 12 or 14 months ago. That said, the Ukrainians are running out of military age men. And so there's only so much farther they can go in terms of losing people. In some ways, the Russians have the advantage here. They're in the defense. They have layered defense. They have minefields. They have tank traps. They have multiple layers of trenches with men defending each of these belts, each of these defensive belts. So the Russians really have the upper hand here because the defense is easier than the offense in war. They are convinced that their cause is just. That is not the case on the Russian side. The Russians are defending something that is very hard to keep the morale of their troops. The Ukrainians clearly feel that they're trying to take back their country, that the Russians are in the wrong here, that the Russians were the attackers. And so the Ukrainians do have the kind of morale, the kind of support, the kind of esprit that is important to be able to continue these hard slog, bloody kinds of conflicts.